Hello investors, thank you for joining me. My name is Michael from Deep Value Returns on Seeking Alpha. Today I want to talk about PayPal's acquisition of Pinterest. So a lot of people have written out to me asking me about my thoughts on this idea, and I wanted to just sum it up in a word, which is odd. But I wouldn't despair. If I was a PayPal shareholder, I think that there's a lot here still to be compelled about the investment, and I wouldn't be throwing away my stocks right now. So let me just get right to the chase, okay? So the first thing that came to mind when I saw this is that this is basically a diversification. Peter Lynch's word for when a company is kind of making too much money and is too successful doing one thing, and then they decide that the best thing for them to do is to go out and buy a totally different business, totally unrelated. So here's the thing, right? So when the dust settles, Pinterest has been acquired for $45 billion. Okay, so that's not a large premium to where the stock trades right now. So for Pinterest shareholders, this is actually, I believe, it's not a great deal for them. That being said, keep in mind two things. First, Pinterest's revenue growth rates are very, very choppy. Okay, so you have a company that in Q2 21 was growing last quarter, was growing at approximately 125% year over year. Yes, it did have the easier comp versus the Q2 of the previous year, but it was growing at triple digit, and the guidance for Q3 is for marked deceleration where it's growing at 40%. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The next thing to keep in mind is that what we've seen already from Snap's results last week is this whole privacy changes, and how companies that don't have a lot of first-party data are going to be meaningfully affected over the near term, as they don't have enough data on the identifiers of the users. So the ability to target the user is going to diminish, and that means that advertisers' return on investment is going to diminish. That means that the pricing power that Pinterest has on advertisers is going to diminish. So that's obviously weighing down its revenue growth rates. It's a huge headwind, but it's going to be temporary. It's going to last a short period of time, and then it should pick back up. Nevertheless, this choppiness is why the stock is not really going very far in 21, and that's why the stock, PayPal is acquiring them relatively cheaply. On the other side of the equation, keep in mind that 1 plus 1 doesn't always equal 3. So it's just gonna be a tough one. I think that it's a bit of a swing really here for PayPal to be acquiring an advertising platform, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Yes, they're gonna say that Pinterest is gonna unlock its e-commerce opportunities, and they're gonna go on and spin all this around. But ultimately, Pinterest has for a long period of time already tried to make inroads in e-commerce, and it hasn't really succeeded so far. It has succeeded in my opinion at least, it has done quite well in its advertising opportunity. It's highly profitable already if you think about it, right? So Snap last quarter just reported on Thursday for Q3, so it's not aligned with Q2, but for Q3 they reported approximately 16% EBITDA. That was one of their strongest quarters in EBITDA. And for Q2 21, Pinterest was EBITDA was 29%. So Pinterest is a more profitable business and makes more free cash flow as a percentage of total revenue. So it's a successful business. So PayPal is making this acquisition, doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but this is not a thesis breaker, because ultimately, when you think about it, right, it's the ability to, my ability to incorporate new facts as they come around, and I often change my mind, and this is something that kind of really jars with people that read my work. A lot of people that read my work say, Michael, I thought this that you felt this and that, but as the new fact came in, you changed your mind. And yes, and I highlight that, the reason why Buffett has been able to be so successful for so many decades is because he continues to adapt. So he's gone from buying nets, he goes to buying textile companies for below book value, then he buys soft drinks, and then he migrates and takes his idea of actually an unsuccessful investment in IBM and transports that into buying Apple, and then he makes his biggest dollars return from buying Apple. So, you know, when everything is said and done, you have to be able to adapt or die. Really, investing is it's a brutal business. So you have to be able to be constantly learning new things and constantly moving and constantly changing your thesis when new ideas come in. So in long story short, I do think that this is quite insightful, but I wouldn't despair necessarily. So just as a brief reminder, okay, so Q3 for PayPal, this reporting is going to report in a few weeks. It's guided for 14% year-over-year growth rates. That's the impact of eBay exiting their platform is weighing down that revenue growth rate by approximately 850 basis points. So once we enter Q4, we're going to see that pick back up again. So they're already saying that for the next year, they're going to be growing at mid-20s. So you're going to, company is growing at mid-20s, and then you add in the Pinterest acquisition on top of that, the inorganic growth rate. So you're going to have a business that's probably going to be kicking up next to 30% year-over-year growth rate. And for that, you're getting a business that investors are just going to be, you know, this time, go forward a year's time, investors are going to say, okay, wow, it's growing really fast, and there's Pinterest and there's e-commerce, and people are going to just be, the narrative is going to totally change. So right now, as it stands, PayPal is priced at approximately 9 times forward sales, okay? Sorry, actually 8 times if you include the Pinterest revenue. So you have a business that right now the multiple is really compressed, but if you fast forward a year, you're going to have a business that's growing approximately 30%, probably making more than 5 billion in free cash flow, and investors are going to be like, no, I'm not paying just 8 times forward sales for this, I'm going to be paying, let's say, 10 or 11 or 12 times forward sales. So you're getting a business that's growing 30%, a multiple expansion. So it's not difficult to see how over the next 2 years you're going to clear 50% from this price point. Of course, you know, these are just my ideas, and I have no position in this stock, but I just wanted to kind of highlight that when everything is said and done, Pinterest only accounts for 20% of PayPal's market cap. So if you want to find out what stocks I'm particularly excited about, don't forget to check out my marketplace called Deep Value Returns, and I help you become a better investor. I create a framework that gives you the process of how to think about buying stocks and building a portfolio. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.